Hello strangers and story lovers, and welcome to my lair. Today we're doing a recap of all I've read in August, which is not a lot. You know, August, holidays, doing things and all that. All in all, I just haven't had much time to read, all things considered. But that's fine, you know, like, the quantity is not necessarily what matters the most. What matters the most is the quality. But that wasn't really there either, which is probably another reason why I struggled to read so much this month, because my first book of the month was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Oh boy. For those who haven't read my What I Read in May video, welcome, nice of you to join us. Grab a drink and let's discuss. But yeah, I had a quick note on that video I was mentioning having read Fourth Wing and not being a massive fan of it, to be honest. I kind of mentioned back then that to me it was a little bit of a case of death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't think there's a lot of massive issues, but for me at least there were just a lot of really small issues that just accumulated until the moment where I was just done with the book. But you know, I still kind of want to keep reading it. For science, and also for the review because I think it's kind of funny, but also because I think there's just something really interesting in reading books that I don't like to try and understand why I don't like it. It's not my favorite way of passing the time, don't get me wrong, but I do like reading books that I'm not particularly fond of. Also, I'm just a bit of a completionist sometimes. I know I need to break the pattern, but this is not a review of my toxic traits, this is a review of books. Well, like I said, because of my completionist tendency, because of this channel, and because of my thirst for knowledge, I just decided to keep reading Iron Flame. The saga in general, I'm probably going to read Onyx Storm at some point. But yeah, I just felt like Iron Flame was so much worse than Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing I had given a 2 stars out of 5, and Iron Flame I have to give a 1. I was just furious every time I was reading. It actually felt a little bit like a chore, where I didn't think Fourth Wing was necessarily boring. Sadly, I would say that I found Iron Flame to be a little bit boring sometimes. Well, a lot of the times. I just felt like it was a lot of filler of things that were not super important. And honestly, even the events that were important, or that felt important when they happened, most of the times I didn't feel like it was really followed up on. Like, there's a whole moment where they leave the Basquiat College, and I felt like it was such a huge change in the plot and the scenario. And then they just started doing the same thing somewhere else. And I was just like, brilliant. Here I was thinking something meaningful was finally happening, and that it would actually change the whole situation. No, it didn't. The situation stayed the same, just like new place, same thing. So that was a bit frustrating, but honestly not as much as Violet and Xaden having the same conversation like 5,000 times in the book. It was basically just Violet still being butthurt about the fact that he lied to her in book 1 and being like, now you need to tell me all of the truth, and him being like, well, I can't tell you all of the truth, and them just arguing about it, and it's just the same conversation with absolutely no resolution at the end of the conversation. And then the next time, again, same conversation, same problem. Sometimes it will feel like they made a little bit of a progress, and then next time we're back to square one, and it's just like, when are you going to solve this? Or not even solve this, but like have something actually change. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mind a book being 600 pages, but when it is 600 pages of nothing, I'm starting to feel a bit annoyed. Honestly, I think if this book had been like half the size it is, it would probably have been okay. Obviously, it doesn't cancel the other problems, but at least it would have been much more entertaining. Also, I just have to say, I'm sorry, I don't know how you fall on this question. For me, in this conflict, I have to say I was Team Xaden. Like, what the hell is it with FMCs in the books I've read recently thinking that they're entitled to everyone's secrets. Like, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, just because you're in a couple doesn't mean that you have to tell each other absolutely 100% of everything. Like, sure, of course there are some things that you can't, like, not tell your partner, especially if it concerns them or someone they know, or the relationship in general. Obviously, there are some things that if someone just doesn't tell their partner, I'll be like, dick move. But I already don't think you have to tell your partner every single little thing. So every time she was like, I don't want any secrets, I want you to tell me all the truth, like I want to know everything there is and that you know, and it was just like... But in this case, I felt like she was being so freaking entitled because she was basically expecting him to tell her about war secrets. Like, he's part of the movement, whatever, no spoiler. He's part of the movement. He's been part of this for like years at this point. He's kind of high ranking, and she's basically just arriving in this movement. She is connected to like one of their enemies. She has to prove herself before they would allow her to get the secrets. And she just goes to her boyfriend like, no, you need to tell me all of your secrets now. And their secrets too. No! He's not going to tell you war secrets just because you asked. Honestly, what the actual hell? And this woman... Because yes, I need to remind myself, she is a woman, not a child, even though she acts like she's 13. This woman has been raised by a soldier, like a general. How does she not realize that her boyfriend cannot tell her all of the war secrets? Just because she's freaking Violet Sorrengail, main character of the Empyrean saga, doesn't mean that everyone has to bow down to her. That really annoyed me, sorry. Every time they were having this conversation, I was just like, Violet, back off. Or back all the way off. But, I mean, to be honest, I am not entirely surprised that she was behaving like this, because honestly, in this book, she makes the official transition to being a proper Mary-Sue, I think. In my May review, I said I didn't think she was a Mary-Sue. In my upcoming Fourth Wing video, I will say that I don't think she is a Mary-Sue, and I even made a video that will come out probably in October, September, saying that she is not a Mary-Sue. Like, I made my point, I made my case that this woman is not a Mary-Sue, and I am now completely changing my mind on this. The videos are still coming out because some of my points still stand, and I don't think she was a Mary-Sue in Fourth Wing. I think she is one now, because we're now at the point where other characters are kind of nerfed around her to make her look cooler. It's like basically every other character is now her hype girl. Like, every time she makes her jokes, everyone laughs and goes like, oh, Violet, you're so funny. There was actually even one joke that I legit thought was funny when she made it, and I was like, that's kind of funny, and then 3 other characters are like, Violet, you're so funny. Oh my god, that was hilarious. Oh, well played, Violet. And I was like, now you killed it. You know, I'm not opposed to other characters laughing at each other's joke, but just tone it down a little bit. We don't need every single other character to tell Violet how cool and funny and badass she is. I kind of prefer to be the judge of that myself. So yeah, no, and obviously also any character who doesn't like her is like universally hated, like there's nothing redeemable about them. Unless they change their mind, in which case it's considered a character arc that they suddenly realize that she's not a terrible person. It's like, character arc what? No, we just need them to realize that Violet is not too bad, and then they're good to go. It's like every problems in the world, every bad behavior could be solved by just being like, but have you considered liking Violet Sorrengail? Anyway, I'm getting lost in my own point. But yes, I would say now she passes the Mary-Sue test. At least my personal Mary-Sue test, which, as we all know, is the only one that truly matters. Another thing that honestly really frustrated me about this book is that I really feel like the secondary character, they're pretty boring. Like, outside of Violet and Xaden, I don't think the other characters are more than cardboard archetypes, and even then I can't always tell what archetype they are. It's like you have Rhiannon, who is like the best friend, and that's pretty much it. Like, she's supposed to be super badass and everything. She's even becoming like squad leader in this one to just kind of give the impression that she has something going on for her, but she really doesn't. You have like her friend who's like the comic relief, and that's it. What's his face? Like Rydock? I don't even know. He's the comic relief, and that's it. There's nothing else that you need to know about him. There's a guy called Sawyer who's also their friend. He's there. He has the hots for some girl at some point. And that's about all of the plot that the side characters get. We see Liam's sister at some point. Like, he was a character who, well, he was a character in book 1, and so his little sister arrives at some point, and she looks like she's going to have a little bit of a story, but it just kind of goes nowhere. Like, at first she doesn't like Violet, and then at the end she likes Violet, and it just like doesn't really happen in an interesting way. It's just like, it's made so important for such a long time of the book, like, oh, she really hates Violet, and it's super childish and stupid, and it's just so Violet can be even more of a martyr. And then suddenly you're expecting that something cool is going to happen eventually, like, to pay off for all that build-up. But no, at some point she's just like, oh yeah, actually, I've heard that my brother didn't hate you, so I like you now. Okay, well, that was worth it. Thank you. I'm glad I had to read those 28 scenes mentioning how much you hate Violet and how you're like glaring at her aggressively just to get a resolution of, oh, actually I realized my brother didn't hate you, so you're fine now. You know, if you don't want to give any attention to your secondary characters, you're allowed to have less of them. Because that's another problem. I just thought there are too many underexplored secondary characters. I cannot tell you how many times in this book there's mention of like a character that goes like, oh yeah, Aya was on top of that tower. And I was just like, I'm sorry, who the fuck is Aya? Or, this character was doing this character was doing that. And I was like, who are you talking about? Was I supposed to remember this character? And then sometimes you have a character who just like gets mentioned, and I was just like, wait, no, who was that? Is that this person who was, no, okay, that's not it. Was that person part of this group? And then at some point I actually managed to remember and be like, oh, okay, this person was part of that group that did this thing at the end of book 1. I don't remember that character specifically, because they were just basically like background setting, but I remember the context of the story around them, and then they die. And I'm just like, I don't know, like, how am I supposed to feel? Because personally I just felt confused. I was like, moving on. Like, if you're going to pay so little attention to your secondary characters, just let go. Just don't write the scene. They were not crazy good scenes that I would have missed if they weren't there. Again, like I said, I feel like this book has so much filler. Like, just reduce the amount of of secondary characters. That it's fine, you don't need them, especially because it's so clear that the only thing that we're supposed to be investing any attention, any focus, any emotional attachment to is like Violet and Xaden. That's the only thing that we seem to be ever interested in this story, other than the dragons are still my favorite part of the book, I have to say. Like, nothing wrong with them. But yeah, reading this book, there were just so many times where I was thinking like, oh god, just stop it with the secondary characters. There are too many none of them are memorable, other than Rhiannon, Ridoc, and Sawyer. And even then, they're only memorable because their names are mentioned so many times, but they don't really stand out as characters. They're just not interesting. There's really nothing about them. The only side character that I was ever even slightly emotionally invested in was Liam, and we all know what happened to Liam if we've read Fourth Wing. And it's frustrating because I genuinely like Liam, and so knowing that the author can write secondary characters that I actually like, but doesn't, I don't know, it's just frustrating. Why don't you give them more space to breathe? Like, have less of them, but flesh them out a bit more? Especially if you're gonna end up killing them, like, for drama. Because honestly, at this stage, to me, it just felt like those characters were being killed, preferably in front of Violet, just to add to her ever-growing trauma. And I'm not saying that you can't, like, have your main character witness death and destruction, and this secondary character was only meant to achieve this. But I don't know, like, there was this side character who dies in book 1, and she wasn't that important either, but for some reason I just felt like her death was treated with more gravitas. But for some reason, I think it's probably because she was the first one, and now we're using that same trick over and over again just to add to Violet's ever-growing trauma. At some point it just doesn't work anymore. At some point, if it's a character I'm not emotionally invested in, I'm just not really gonna care. I'm sorry. Even if it affects the main character, I've seen it happen. I've appreciated it the first time, but now it's just becoming repetitive. So yeah, no, I just cut the amount of secondary characters, please. I can't remember them. But yeah, I think I'm done with this book at this point because I have a review that's going to come out about it at some point anyway, so I just wanted to rant a little bit about it because it's not like I have a lot of books to rant about this month anyway, so I can take a little bit of my time. But yeah, next book is The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. And this one I've rated 4 stars because I liked it. I thought it was a pleasant read. I kind of hesitated between a 3 stars and a 4 stars because I don't think it's going to be a book that's going to stay with me really. So at some point I was like maybe a 3 stars instead of a 4 stars, but I feel like I've had too much of a good time to give it a 3, so 4 it is. I just thought that the style was nice, the character voice was nice as well. It was very distinct, and I like the very serious professor tone of the main character, Walden. It's basically the story of a teacher who's way too competent for just being a teacher, but here she is. She likes to teach students, but she has a lot of doubt about her career and herself and everything. And she's a professor, she's a teacher, but she's a teacher in like demon summoning because I like fantasy and paranormal. I don't like normal stories. So, well. Anyway, yeah, she's a teacher in a school in the UK that basically has like evocation and invocation, demon summoning and things. And I kind of liked the world and how it was described through her eyes, and like one of the first scenes that you see is like her having to fix like a printer because it's been like possessed by a demon, because demons, like minor demons, they really like complex technology, and so they kind of like to possess that technology. And I just thought that was fun, like to have her comment all the time that there's an imp in the printing machine, or there's an imp in like the alarm bell or something. I really liked the main character and her very academic description of magic and how it works. I thought that was really part of what made the book a bit nicer for me. I just liked her perspective on magic and how it works and how she described it. And I also really liked her tone and how she expressed herself. She really felt like this tired professor who was just kind of done with things. And she has like a very interesting view of her students and the dynamics, and like there are some funny lines about it, and I just really liked the dynamic that she had with her students, and I like the students themselves. Like, they're not the best secondary characters I've ever read about, obviously, but I just liked they had like their little personalities. They really held on to it. They didn't feel like cardboard characters, like comparing to Iron Flame. They just really felt like they were fleshed out, even though they had less time to really be developed, because the book is much shorter. And I think overall they get less dedicated time, but because, sorry to say, the writing was just more competent, the time that they're given is enough for them to be a bit more fleshed out and to have more personality than is the comic relief or is the serious girl. Even though you kind of have these stereotypes as well. You have a girl who's just like a bit of a like bookworm overachiever and things like this, and she just holds to this position, to this character archetype, but you can tell that there's a little bit more to it. I don't know, they just feel more fleshed out. I also like the fact that Walden was really struggling to leave sometimes her teacher persona. Even with her friends or her colleagues, like there's a mention sometimes that she was kind of using her teacher voice because she's such a workaholic, like she's working all the time and she doesn't have much else going on in her life, that she just kind of struggles to get out of that. And I don't know, I felt like it was interesting and it was kind of a nice way of preparing certain conflicts. There are also some battles against demons that were pretty cool as far as I was concerned. I liked them. I thought they were appropriately, maybe not epic, but tense and interesting and well written. The only thing that I will say I wasn't a fan of, even though I really wanted to like it, was the romance. Because basically there's kind of a romance with one of the, how do they call them? The marshals in the school. Who are these people who are trained to fight demons, just in case there's like a demon that invades the school, which, you know, spoiler alert, there is. And so the chief marshal of the school is called Laura. Oh, I can't remember her last name, but that's fine. Basically, there's this chick called Laura, and you can tell relatively early on that she's going to be the love interest. And I really liked her. She's like this kind of badass chick, which my kind of gal. So I liked Walden, I liked Laura. I can't say I disliked them together. I just felt like the romance was a little bit nah. I mean, especially the getting into each other part was just a bit too quick to my liking, because I kind of like to see that whole process of, oh, I'm interested in you now. But in this case, I felt like we started the story with them being just like a little bit on the tense side of a relationship. Like they've been colleagues for a while. It's a little tense between them. At least that's how I felt it. But I read it as an audiobook, so I don't know, maybe at some point I just kind of tuned out and there were hints that they were really into each other. But as far as I was concerned, the only hint was just like, oh, she looks really hot. And to me, I don't know, that's just not enough. So I was hoping that this would be like, you know, the beginning, because you're allowed to find someone hot and then develop feeling for them. But in this case, I felt like we went from, oh, she's really hot, to suddenly they're kissing, and I was like, when did that happen? So yeah, not exactly my thing, but that aside, once the actual relationship, it's a bit more complicated than that, but once the relationship kind of starts, I like it because they're kind of nice together, they work well, I like them both, and you can see that they're getting along well. And I think there's just an openness and a maturity to how they talk to each other and how they're just kind of considering what their lives together would be. And I don't know, I guess I just kind of like that. So, yeah, I didn't mind the romance, I just wanted to like it more. Yeah, I just always find it very disappointing when the attraction mostly comes from like, oh, this person is really hot, and it's like, oh, I wish I had kind of seen more of the build-up. I don't know, it's entirely possible that I missed some of it due to it being an audiobook and me doing something else at the same time. You know, like I always say, I don't want to ever forget the possibility that I may be wrong. But still, it's how I felt about this book and this romance. Like, I really liked it. I wish I had liked the romance a bit more, but still had a really good time. And once I got over that, the fuck happened with this kiss, I still liked the book. Although I have to say I did like the first part a bit more than the second part. But yeah, no, but it was a good book. It was a good book. Again, not sure if it's going to stay with me, like if I'll remember it in like a couple years, but I enjoyed it. And I mean, for obvious reason, my favorite book this month, The Incandescent. I don't have a lot of contenders this month, and the alternative, completely out of the question. Like, even if I hadn't read The Incandescent, I wouldn't have picked Iron Flame as my favorite. I would have said there's no favorite this month. But yeah, there is The Incandescent. It is a good book, so it's my favorite book this month. And on that note, I think I am done with everything I wanted to say about both books. And also I am just ready to be done filming, not because it was very long, but just because I am very tired. But anyway, that's it for what I read in August. Sadly, like I said, it was a very non-reading month for me. But yeah, anyway, like I said, that's it. So leave a like if you've liked the video, subscribe if you want to see more of my face. Thanks for tuning in, and continue to enjoy stories.